Hey, Wire Monkeys, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Cabling. This week, we're talking about personal branding. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, technicians, project foremen, project managers, estimators, customers. We are connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? I do a live stream where you get to ask your favorite, that's me, favorite RCDD, any kind of question on installation, certification, design, you name it, even career path questions. But I can hear you now. But Chuck, I'm driving my truck at Wednesday night at 6 p.m. I don't want to get into a crash. It's okay. I record them and you can watch them at your convenience. Just make sure that you've watched them on letstalkcabling.com or, one of the other social media outlets. We'll pump it out to at some point in time. While this show is free and will always remain free, if you find value in this content, would you mind clicking on that QR code right there? You can buy me a cup of coffee. You can even schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me after hours, of course, where I can ask, again, any of those questions of your concern. So this week, we're going to talk about personal branding. Now, I know, here's the problem. The audience is split in half. Half of you know what personal branding is, and the other half is like, what the heck is that? Even if you don't know what your personal brand is, you still have a personal brand. And if you can leverage it, you can make yourself become more successful in your career, attain better quality employees, better employers, better customers. So why would you not want to pay attention to your personal branding? And it really seems to fall under, I think the dividing line is the boomer generation. After the boomer generation, millennials were raised with computers and they understand that they got an online presence and that they can leverage that online presence to make themselves more successful. Obviously, I have a personal brand. And just for example, my catchphrase, everybody knows it. It's knowledge is power, right? That's my catchphrase, and my corporate colors, and my face is my brand. And I talk to people all the time. They're like, "Oh yeah, I know you." I was sitting at a Bixie conference one time, sitting at the dinner table at the awards banquet, and I was talking to a friend of mine. Usually sitting with people you don't know, and this guy finally says to me, he goes, I know you. You're the guy with the podcast. So, yes, you can build a brand and that could forge a new relationship. And I'll be the first to tell you, while I may seem to be successful at personal branding, I still struggle with it big time. I really do. So I wanted to, there's a lot of people out there who have social media branding. Some people are really good at it. Some people suck at it. So I wanted to do a show and I wanted to bring on somebody who's well more versed in personal branding than I am so we can talk about this. So I want to welcome to the show, Josh Bowman. Josh, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Chuck. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So why don't you go ahead and give us the 30-second highlight? Who's Josh Bowman and who do you work for?
Great. Yeah. So I've actually been in the low voltage industries for 32 years, which is a lot for a 46-year-old. So I grew up working in audiovisual electronics in the family business that grew into IT and structured cabling, telephone, obviously the AV controls and security. I've worked as an installer on the ladder, project manager, and operations manager, and on the manufacturing side, especially in security, in sales, as well as product management. And the big reason I'm here today, of course, marketing. I was recently a director of marketing for a cloud video surveillance and access control product. So I've done a lot and also have my own little podcast called 49 Volts, which you were recently a guest. Proud to have you on. So yeah, very, very big on this message you're giving today about personal branding.
Yeah, I had a blast. I certainly suggest to anybody who's listening to the show check out Josh's podcast because it's on low voltage industry, but his is more focused towards
Yeah.
security and stuff. Right now, I'm kind of more broad based. So during your show, or when I was on your show, I said I'm not niche. I'm super niche. I guess that makes you super 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 niche because you're even further defined than I am. Right. So there you go. It's all about niche. So So let's talk about
Yeah.
the basics. I think when you have the low voltage industry in mind, okay, thinking about
Hmm.
us, because I also have a degree in marketing too, so I just don't put that out there very
Oh,
often. But so keeping the low voltage industry in mind, how would you define personal branding?
so I think it's pretty easy to define, but I think it's often misunderstood. And I would start to explain that, even to explain what a person thinks of when you say branding for a company, even. A lot of times they'll point like to the Nike logo on their shoe and they'll say, hey, that's a brand. Well, no, a brand is not the logo. A brand is what you think of when you see that logo. And so, in the same respect, when you talk about personal branding, you're really talking about something that's very important, which is what do people think of when they see you? When they see your name, when they see you out and about, what are the thoughts that they have about you? It's kind of a modern way of looking at reputation. And like you said, I think folks that, obviously I'm in a weird age. I'm a Gen Xer that's 46, but I started really young. So I kind of grew up working with all the same boomer generation folks like yourself, as well as prior. And, there was, back then it was just, it was almost a direct result of your relationships. So if you hired Tony into the office and Tony worked with Gary, and he would say, man, Gary was the best estimator ever, or Gary was a great project lead and could run the best project. That's kind of how you knew who was good or not, or how qualified they were, or whether you may like them or not, was almost simply just because you knew somebody that knew them. And in this world, it's very different now.
It absolutely is. It's way different because I've been in the low voltage industry for since 1982. You do the math because you might be listening to this podcast a year from today, so well over 4 decades. I didn't start off as young as you because I didn't get into the low voltage industry until I was about 18, maybe a little bit older, maybe even 19. Now that I think about it, but it has changed a lot, and you're right. It's all about reputation. I mean, when you think about, say, for example, just kind of use some personal branding that I'm kind of aware of because I'm all over social media. It's funny when I teach classes and stuff, and if I mention the name Sean Rep, a lot of people in our industry automatically know, oh, that's the guy who dresses the cable really nice. That's his brand.
Yeah.
That's his brand, and again, he's taking it above beyond. Now there might be other people out there who might dress cable just as well as Sean Rep, but they're not putting it out there for people to notice. And I can attest, several examples. I don't want to call people out by name, but several examples of people who've leveraged their personal branding to get the job that they want or get job offers, right? Because people see it. And this all we can talk about audiences and where to post and all this stuff later, but you
Mm-hmm.
know that's gonna garner somebody's attention, and they're gonna say, I've even had opportunities to get people on the show because they know me through the podcast, and they would know that if I wouldn't be working on my personal branding all the time.
Yeah.
And personal branding is it's a life of its own almost, and you gotta baby it, and you gotta protect it like your newborn baby child. That's why you'll never see me do any posts on politics ever, ever. You want to
Right.
divide people?
Yeah.
I get it. If I was just chasing numbers, like chasing audience members, yeah, I would do politics and I'd get people riled up and that'd get people, either for or against or whatever. But that's not what I'm about, right? I don't measure my personal success by my numbers. I
Right.
measure my personal success by the number of emails or people coming up to me at conference saying, "Chuck, man, because of your podcast, I'm studying from RCDD now, or I got this job, or I learned this, I learned that." That's how I measure my success. Don't get me wrong. I pay attention to numbers just like everybody else does because that's how the algorithm rewards you, right? Right. So
Right.
personal branding for me has been obviously extremely important because of the podcast and all this stuff. Do you think branding, personal branding, not branding, but personal branding is important for the low voltage industry, to the technician in the field, to the project manager, or maybe the designer?
I think it's important to everyone. So again, if you think about like an example of a Nike logo, what do you think of when you see that logo? Again, it's the brand. that you're drawn to because you feel like, okay, it gives me the performance that I want. It's what athletes use. It's, I know that it's synonymous with style and quality, whatever it may be. That same type of mindset is what we're trying to get everyone here to understand. Is it's not about being vain. It's not about getting on and talking about politics and things that get people riled up. It's an opportunity that every day with just a little bit of time spent, that you can show the world who you are and what you're about. And you can show them, if you're in the field, man, showing that quality of work. And there's been so many great examples of, like, there are people in the cabling industry, for example, like you're mentioning, that there are people across the globe that understand the quality of their work. And I promise you, when those individuals find themselves in need of looking for employment, looking for another job, they've made themselves very employable, and they're going to be very desirable, and hopefully, will command a very good salary. And I think you can do the same kind of things, whether you're in the field, and I think it's very easy to focus on the quality, but also in the office. When you're in the office, a lot of your job is to help bring revenue to the company, right? You got the folks out there doing the work. You need to make sure the work's coming in, whether you're selling to customers, whether you're going after bid work. The same kind of questions always come up. I mean, do you have examples of the quality of your work? What kind of organization are you? What are your values? I mean, these things are all very important, and it's part of that personal brand that you can kind of put out there, and you can build that, and it makes life easier. When you can show people what you're capable of and the type of individual that you are, it really, really benefits you.
Yeah,
but it's a good point
absolutely.
that you made, because you could do really, really well at that. And if you get on angry one day and you're posting with emotion and not strategically, you can really damage all of that work. So, it's important that brand it's your way of showing your knowledge, your quality. It's your contribution to the community in your industry, and always be focused on that.
Hey there, business owners and tech enthusiasts. Are you tired of dealing with outdated technology and unreliable IT support? Introducing Better Days Technology, Rhode Island's premier IT solution provider. Whether you need secure network setups, top-notch cybersecurity, or seamless software integrations, Better Days Technology has got you covered. Don't let tech troubles hold you back. Visit betterdaystechnology.com or call 401-440-5483 today. One call to us and you'll be having better days. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
It boils down to messaging, right? You got to pick what your message is. And that's why, if you actually you look at all my stuff across, the three pillars of the podcast: educate, encourage, and enrich, right? If I post something political, that doesn't fit any one of those three. And that's the filter that everything I post goes through. And if it doesn't meet one or more of those, then as far as I'm concerned, it's none of the world's business. It just isn't. I mean, it could be anything from politics to the type of motorcycle I ride to, whatever. Just it is what it is. And everything goes through that filter. So when you're talking about personal branding, would it look the same as to somebody in the field as opposed to personal branding to somebody in an office?
I think it could, but it also can be very different. Again, so if you're in the field, it's very easy to focus on the quality of your work. Also, the safety of the work that you're doing is very, very important in today's world. Can be a way to, highlight your respectfulness to the customer site or to the job site that you're on, as well as provide a window to the world about what a day in your life is. There could be some young folks that are coming through school right now trying to figure out what they want to do in life. And, they may not want to go work in a big office tower somewhere. They're trying to think of what some other jobs are. I mean, here's an opportunity to show them it may not seem exciting to you that you're loading reels of cable into a van, but that's showing people what a day in the life is. So I think there's a lot of things very specific that you can show in the field that can be a little different in the office. And I think in the office, it can be sort of, the environment that your office has, the knowledge that you have, maybe sharing some of your journey and how you got to the place where you were, moved on from the field and into the office, maybe being able to highlight some of the comparisons for those out there in the field.
Yeah.
that maybe want to get to that place. And, we've all gotten here because we've had mentors. And we talked on my podcast last week about, a gentleman named Jim Martin, that we both have a lot of experience with. Jim was one of those folks that, he's like the same age as my dad, but he treated me like a friend. He was always there to offer good advice, help me out if I needed a job when I was younger, tell me what places to go and not to go, how to behave and not to behave. And of course, told me all kinds of crazy stories about when he was younger. That was a lot of fun to listen to. So, as we move up in the world, we do have a responsibility, and part of our brand, in my view, should be that we're trying to help other folks kind of get on that path and grow their careers too. And I think if you're in the office, that's one of the best personal brands that you could have, and will pay you back, because if you find yourself in need of a job, or you're trying to move your career forward, that is the type of leadership and that's the type of environment that all these low voltage contractors are looking for. They're not looking for selfish people to come into the office. They're looking for people that want to come in and help the team grow.
Yeah, you said, guys, so much stuff here. I'm writing notes as we go along. You give me so much stuff for fodder as we're talking. But that again. So when you just use me as an example as for personal branding, because to me it's all about giving, and that can be kind of draining over a long period of time. That's a whole different. That could be a different show. Is how do you find inspiration to keep going when you're doing personal branding and social media? But that'd be a show upon itself. But
yeah,
what happens is because I've got 4 years into this, and people know that now. They know me. They know that my show's not about. There are people out there who do stuff just to make money, and there's people, and
right.
there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but that's not the intent of the show. But because of the approach that I take, I've had many people say, "Oh, Chuck, well, you've given so much to this industry. Let me help you with that, or let me help you." And they want to be a part of this journey, and that's what I find so successful. And when you're talking about personal branding and stuff, talking about doing social media, maybe project manager, maybe you might do a thing on project management tips or how to work through certain situations. Estimators, you might do a show on on different types of estimating, how to talk to a customer who they just don't want to put in the right cable, or they want you to splice the cable and it's against standards, and how to explain. There's lots of ways that you can approach this. I mean, lots of ways. And I will say this: the technicians, they're hands-on, they're tactile learners, so they love showing their work. And I have no problem with that. I love looking at good cable work. But I will tell you this: if you start posting your work on social media, two big hurdles, and you touched one of them already. Make sure you have permission from the customer to be taking pictures of their very sensitive networks.
Right.
Because I've seen it more than once. Somebody post a picture of a rack at some client's place, and it's got on the server, it's got the IP address.
Yeah.
You're opening yourself to all kinds of problems there. Get permission first. And then the second thing I highly suggest is, if you're going to be taking pictures of your work, make sure that you're doing it right. Right? There's a lot of people, I go by the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people are doing the work almost perfectly. But, I look at pictures all the time, and I see people, they focus on one thing, like dressing in the cable. Oh, that looks so beautiful. Yeah. But I don't see the rack is not bonded to the ground yet. I see you didn't put the caps on the ladder rack. Make sure you got all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed, because you will be setting that example. If you're doing it on the technical side, right? On the hands-on side, the technical side, because there's lots of people out there now. There's All Green Lights. There's Low Volt Warby. There's I already mentioned Sean Rep, and there's several others out there that Geek IT Tech and Avenger Security and a bunch of other people doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
How do you stand out amongst the crowd of low voltage content creators now?
Well, I think the first thing is to get started. You're never going to stand out not getting involved. And I think another good tip that I always have is to be yourself. If you try to copy and mimic someone else's persona, their brand, and you're not being yourself, that makes you kind of phony. And that is not attractive to people. We don't, sort of like, Chuck, we don't need another Chuck. We have Chuck. What we need is someone else that brings something else to the table. And I think we're all, even when we have similar roles and similar jobs and similar tasks, we all kind of bring our own touch to things. And so I think the best way to stand out is to not be afraid to get involved. And to your point, if you put yourself out there, you're going to show a mistake now and again, or you're going to make a mistake, or you're going to say something incorrectly. And, part of your brand should be that openness to have discussion, with the community and learn from it. I think that is very appealing to everyone, including a potential employer down the road. But, don't be afraid to get out there and do it. Don't be afraid that you're not going to be perfect, because no one is. But then don't go out and try to repeat what somebody's already done. I mean, I can't tell you, if you just look at YouTube out there, if you got kids like I do, they all know about Mr. Beast. He's this giant YouTuber with just millions and millions of views on every video. And there are millions and millions of people out there trying to pretend to be Mr. Beast, and no one cares. No one watches their videos because we already have a Mr. Beast. So be yourself, be authentic, be sincere, be genuine. That is what is most appealing to people online when they're looking at things like this. If you're going to go out and be that inflammatory type of person, I think that's a whole other career, and do that somewhere else. But then you can be whatever you want. But if you're gonna be speaking to a community of professionals, they want to see somebody who's really being themselves, and I think people really identify with that.
Yeah. You gain credibility if you show people that you are vulnerable, that you make the same mistakes that they do.
Yeah.
I did it. No, this has been 2 years ago now. It's been quite a while. I did a show on something or another. I don't even remember what it was now. And whatever it was that I did or whatever it was I said was wrong. And then somebody in the comments said, pointing out to me, Chuck, that's wrong, blah, blah, blah. I could have come back and said, yeah, hey, I'm an RCDD. I got 4 decades. Shut up. But I looked at it and said, oh my gosh, I was wrong. And so I did the very next show. I did the whole entire show about Chuck messed up. I was wrong. And because you know what? There's not a person walking on this earth right now who hasn't made a wrong decision or made a mistake in their life and learned from it. So the best you can do is show that you are human and you're walking the same pathways as everybody else.
No question. At TDM, those are 2 pretty big books. They don't appear to be getting any smaller. Nobody, regardless of passing that exam or not, nobody remembers everything all the time. And you're going to encounter new situations that you've not seen before. Or maybe you're working with a new product and you've not worked with it before, and you're just not familiar with how it was intended to be used. I've worked for manufacturers for a decade now. Let me tell you, they don't always think about, the real world out there. So, they take for granted sometimes that something will be obvious that is not. So never be afraid to be wrong about something and to learn. And you'll find that your community, they'll be honored at the opportunity to provide some feedback and to help you out. And it becomes a 2-way street at that point.
It does. And that's what it boils down to. People want to relate. People want to be able to be in a relationship. And you can't be in a relationship with somebody. And when I say relationship, I don't mean boyfriend, girlfriend. I mean, it could be anything from peer to peer, friend to friend, whatever. We are social animals and we want to be part of something. And if you got somebody that you perceive never makes a mistake, and you put them up on a pedestal, you will never relate to that person. Never relate to that person. I'll be the first to tell you, I make mistakes all the time. I probably made 3 mistakes already today.
That's my quota.
Yeah, there you go. The key is, what do you do with those mistakes, right? Do you just sit there and dwell on them, or do you learn from them? It's what you do with that is what really kind of happens.
Well, you have to think about yourself. Are you drawn to somebody who is so overly perfect that they almost feel arrogant and kind of stuck up? And that's, nobody's really into that. And we don't expect people that we care about to know everything under the sun or to never mess up. And it's about having a mutual respect. But a big thing that you're pointing out here in saying that is part of the value of this personal brand is the fact that, as you build an audience, these are people that build a relationship with you, even though you've never met them.
Right.
And you're providing a lot of value and benefit to people. I mean, this is part of the appeal of what people kind of say, and I often say it in a negative way, but this new influencer economy that exists.
Yeah.
And it's really how a lot of marketing is done now. It's through these influencers because the audience builds a relationship with them. So as you said, we're niche and super niche here. We're working on kind of a smaller, more focused type of an audience, but this kind of stuff is important to people. They're looking for content that helps them grow. They're looking for people that they can relate to. For the younger pups out there, they're looking for good role models to help them learn and grow and get better in their careers. So you can really set a great example.
There's always somebody who doesn't have the same amount of experience that you have, and they're looking to learn, and they're watching you. Being a parent, you learn this pretty quickly. You have to treat your kids as if they're watching you all the time, because they are watching you all the time. Because I can tell you as a parent, more than one occasion I had my kids say something. I'm like, where'd you get that from? From you, Dad? And then you think about it and you go, oh yeah, he did get that from me, good or bad, right? So good or bad, right?
Right.
And you do, and I love that word relationship, because I'll never be a beast giving multiple millions of people following and stuff. I've got a really small audience when you compare it to them, but my audience, if I miss, and it doesn't happen often, if I miss publishing out a podcast on a Monday, sometime Tuesday, by end of Tuesday, I guarantee I'll have 15, 20 emails. Chuck, you okay? What happened? You didn't publish something tonight. Because
right.
it's built a relationship with them.
Hold that thought. Let's listen to a short message from our sponsor. Don't go anywhere. Bessemer Industries is your trusted partner in cutting-edge telecommunications and security solutions in Central California. From structured cabling and fiber optics to comprehensive telecom and surveillance systems, we've got you covered. Enhance your business with seamless connectivity and top-notch security. Our licensed and insured team ensures that you get the best service tailored to your needs. Why choose Bessemer Industries? Expertly crafted solutions, reliable and secure installations, licensed and insured professionals. Don't wait. Connect with us today and elevate your business to new heights. Bessemer Industries, connecting and securing Central California's businesses one wire at a time. Visit us at www.bessemerindustries.com or call 559-314-7050. Bessemer Industries, your link to seamless connectivity. Now, let's get back to the show.
When you look at the vast array of social media platforms out there, right? There's Clapper, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and probably a dozen more that I'm not naming. Right?
Right.
How does somebody choose which one's going to be the best for them? Keeping in mind we're doing a professional brand.
I think first of all, don't sleep on LinkedIn. I know there's a lot of silliness with some of the recruiters telling stories about what they did as an executive of their one-person company. So the stories don't seem possible. There's a lot of, on any social platform, you're going to have some posing and some stuff like that. But in general, that is like a directory now. I mean, I kind of see LinkedIn as the modern phone book. So if you are a business, you need to have a LinkedIn page, and it needs to be carefully curated as far as the brand of the business. And you'd be surprised how many low volt contractors don't do that. I mean, that's why I started my company. It's just a huge missed opportunity. And that is your chance when you go out and bid on a project, with the large GC, with the large architectural firm. There's your chance to show them what you are. I mean, to show your work, to show your experience level, to show your people by having a company page. Everybody can be associated with that. And yes, I am walking a long path here, but so it's very important from a company perspective. Now extend that to yourself. Think about why you're doing this. You're trying to build a career for yourself, and you're trying to build a community that you're a part of, and you're trying to build a following that will, understand the value that you bring. Because again, in this modern age, we have this advantage we didn't used to have. And so starting first, where should you go? LinkedIn. I mean, that is a business first community there. But also don't sleep on, I tell you, from a marketing perspective, I've really embraced social more and more over the last few years. And, kind of wish that I had embraced it many, many years ago. And one that I've come around on, which from a cybersecurity perspective, it's not perfect in my eyes, but TikTok has a huge following. I mean, you can develop, and that Avenger Security is an example of where that guy gets, I think he had in the last quarter 1.6 million views, I think he said, when he was on my other podcast. I mean, you can take and repurpose a lot of these same videos in the same 4x3 format and post it on LinkedIn. You can post it on TikTok. You can post it on Facebook. So, I mean, I think the answer to that question is actually always going to change. I think LinkedIn should always be a component of it because of the business value. And in fact, your employer, if you're putting out content that is positive and is a good reflection on them, the fact that you associate your profile with the fact you worked at that company and you tag your employer, when you're posting these things, you're providing great benefit to them. That is never going to hurt your career. But then go out, honestly, I think you're going to do a lot. We've seen a lot, especially in the security industry. There are a lot of accounts that do extremely well on Instagram, and they primarily focus on producing reels. TikTok, again, there's a huge opportunity there. You'd be surprised how many people are getting news and information on TikTok now. It's not just funny music videos like it used to be. Facebook is still pretty big too. And don't be afraid to engage in those groups on Facebook as well as Reddit. I've actually been able to share a lot of information and learn a lot of information on Reddit. So I think you kind of start with LinkedIn, and then I think, you're going to grow your most of an audience or more of an audience faster on something like TikTok or Instagram, where you have a lot more users. But, kind of let your own preferences guide you from there. If you want to use a social media tool, if you want to spend $10-12 a month and use a scheduler, you could probably very easily push that content to all those platforms, or focus on the 2 or 3 that mean the most to you.
Yeah, the social media scheduling tools are a lifesaver. Mm-hmm. And my advice is pick one social media platform first, depending on which audience you want. Work with that, finds out what resonates with that one before you move on. Because if you try to apply what resonates with the LinkedIn audience to what it's going to resonate with the TikTok audience, you're going to find it's not going to resonate somewhere, because those are 2 different audiences.
Yeah.
Right. And in LinkedIn right now is the wild, wild west. It is. I mean, their algorithm is really favorable to content creators right now. And
it is.
So if you look at my LinkedIn content, that content is usually more geared towards professional development and engineering level audience. Okay, or people who are really interested in a career. My TikTok audience is more geared towards people in the field, right? Mm-hmm. People working with their hands. And you hit the nail on the head. My TikTok audience is growing way faster than any of my other things right now. That's why I'm kind of real leery. That's why I got on Clapper, because of all the talk about TikTok being banned and all that stuff. And I was looking for a backup and stuff. And even Clapper, I've only been on for a few months. I'm already at like 500, and I haven't really been working on it that hard. I mean, because I got to figure out how to put Clapper in my scheduler tool, because for some reason it's not allowing me to do it.
Yeah, but you're going to find.
I sit down Sunday nights and I do all my posts Sunday nights, and then it, bam, 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 mm-hmm. It puts it out, throughout the week. So that way I'm not, because it can be a treadmill. You can't, you'll get on there and you start thinking about the social media posts, and it's exciting at first. It's exciting at first, but then, when you're 6 months into it, a year into it, it's a weight around your neck, and it's something you got to balance.
Well, and I think
you find. Go ahead.
No, as I said, I mean, that's why I think it's important also to understand what your mission with this is. So if, you don't have to go to the extent that maybe Chuck or Josh goes to with this.
Right.
I'm building a marketing agency, and I'm also marketing organizations and helping people market themselves. So yeah, boy, do I spend a lot of time in the social media scheduling tools, right? I mean, it's a lot of work, but as an individual, just set enough time aside that you can have some fun with it, and that you're at least participating and getting your feet wet and getting started. You don't have to take it all. You don't have to eat the whole elephant in one bite. Um, and kind of find your groove, find your fit, find, what's appealing to you, because if you're not having fun with it, your audience isn't going to enjoy it either. So give yourself a chance to wander through it a little bit and find your cadence, that works for you. Because again, I think that's the big thing in all of this, is that you're not trying to be Chuck. You're not trying to be Avenger Security. You're not trying to copy what somebody else is already doing.
Right.
You got to be you. And it may sound weird, but when you first start recording yourself, we don't always know who we are, right? We're not used to
Oh,
looking at
spot on.
ourselves.
Spot on.
We're not
Yes.
used to just, and I've, if you look at some of the places I've worked and in marketing, there's thousands of videos of me out there. It's kind of funny over the time where you can watch and kind of see how it really changed, where I kind of arrived at who I am and what I really do. And that has been where I've been most successful. But you don't know that at first, because it's not normal for all of us to be on camera. Think of how many people don't even want to have the camera on when they do a Google Meet or a Microsoft Teams meeting. Those cameras are always off. So
Yeah.
it takes a minute for you to get comfortable and find yourself. So
Yeah, it's called finding your voice, and you're absolutely right. I mean,
yeah.
every once in a blue moon, I'll go back and listen to my first episode, and I only listen to it just so I can appreciate how far I've developed my skills. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
I got plenty of room to develop even further, but sometimes when you get in your daily grind, you don't realize how far your journey has gone until you sit back and reflect. And that's why
Exactly.
I listen. I still can't make it all the way through that first episode. Very monotone, and it's funny. And here's something I don't think I've ever put this out there publicly, but that very first episode, I recorded it in my closet with a bunch of coats and stuff hanging around that acted as a sound deadener, so that way the sound would be real. So I was in my closet with my laptop on my lap, and the microphone in front of me, and I was talking. And you mentioned the thing about cameras. You do a lot of people don't like cameras. And in fact, when I first started doing my first stuff on camera, and this Let's Talk Camera is not my first vlog / podcast attempt. It's the one's most successful and the one I put the most energy into, but it's not the first. I've had other ones out there, and I was always the person who didn't like to be on camera. I hated to be on camera. My company sent me to New York to corporate to make some videos, and I did so horrible that they couldn't use any of the footage. That's how bad I was. And the way that my brain operates is I don't like to fail. And I came back so humiliated. I was like, I'm going to fix this. And that's what kind of got me into being in front of the camera. I started off with those other vlogs first. And then I kind of, at some point, I was like, I'm at the end of my career. I need to make an impact in my industry. And that's why I kind of shifted and started doing the Let's Talk Camera. So nobody's natural about being in front of the camera. So don't be in front. And another thing I hear quite often too is people will not do anything from analysis paralysis. So they'll sit there and they'll I got to get this equipment, or I got to get that, I got to do this, I got to do that. To quote Think Media, sometimes you just got to push record and just go.
Yeah.
You just got to go. Right. What are some of the common mistakes that
agree.
you see as a person with a marketing background and social media presence? What's a common mistake that you see people make?
I think it's the things that I keep mentioning. First of all, I think trying too hard to copy someone else and not allowing yourself the space to find your own voice. I think that is a very frequent mistake, and one that really causes people to get discouraged and not keep going. I think the other mistake is just what you said, paralysis by analysis, where we're so focused on what we see out there and what we think is the ideal content, and then never being willing to put any of our own content out there because we're not immediate. I mean, just imagine someone trying to make a home movie and trying to keep up with like a Tom Cruise movie. Well, that's not, you can't compare where somebody is 30, 40 years into their journey to where you are on day one. It's you're never going to get anywhere. So, not giving yourself a chance to start somewhere and get better. But I will tell you, a big mistake that I see people make is, you're in that social media environment. You're going to deal with bots. You're going to deal with people that are trolls that probably don't know anything about what you do. They don't care. They just want to make you angry and lash out at them because they have nothing better to do. And the bots mimic that behavior. Or just going out there and, just like you said, driving a nail in your own heart by getting political or posting with emotion and anger. Remember why you're there. You're focused on your community. You're focused on building your personal brand. You're focused on educating and being part of the community. You're not there for that other stuff, but that other stuff's going to be there. You need to scroll past it. Don't engage with it. Don't use it as a method to, it's not a stress reliever. Don't go into a public space and use it as a stress reliever. Deal with that off camera, and always post with the right intentions. Always think strategically, not emotionally. Those are the kind of big mistakes that I see out there, is either not getting involved at all or giving up before you get anywhere, or then ruining all the good that you've done because some political things going on and you're all hopped up and you're angry and you think your audience wants to hear that. And what you're going to find is half your audience doesn't want to hear that at all. And now the other half of your audience is now following you for a completely different reason. And that doesn't help your personal brand at all. There's plenty of politics out there. I mean, that's not going to bring you anything good.
Right. Yeah. They're all great points. All absolute great points. The only thing I could even add to all those points that you brought up is consistency. It doesn't matter if you do it once a day. It doesn't matter if you do it once a week.
Yep.
It does matter if you start doing it maybe only like once a quarter, right? I'm sorry, if you're publishing out content once a quarter and you're calling it a podcast, that's not a podcast. That's a sales audio thing,
Yeah.
You got to be consistent, because that way people start expecting it, and you do get to you find yourself in a groove where it becomes easier. I know for me, I got right in my head right now, this very moment, I've got at least a dozen show topics in my head right now that if I had the time, if I didn't have a day job, if I didn't have a farm, if I didn't have well, I'm always going to have my wife. I don't want to say that. If I had unlimited time or unlimited resources, I could easily make a dozen episodes right now. Bam. Because I got so much stuff in my head. And so be consistent. Because there's people out there that I literally have not posted an episode on their podcast for over a year.
Yeah.
Why do you have a podcast?
You're starting all over again. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And absolutely. You've lost all that momentum.
You have. I mean, there's two ways that you're getting momentum. One is your actual audience, because now we all have a show we watch, right? What happens when that show goes on hiatus for 2 or 3 years? I don't even remember what was going on. I don't care anymore. Right. And your audience is going to be the same. I mean, we have shorter attention spans right now, not because there's anything wrong with us. We have so much more information coming at us than we did 20, 30 years ago. So if you're not going to stay in my algorithm, I'm not going to remember you. There's too much else to follow. But the other thing is, speaking of algorithm, these, social media platforms reward you for consistent contribution. Yes. So if you are getting good engagement from your posts and you're consistently posting, it is now going to say, okay, we need to help this creator, and it's not consciously knowing that. It's just all part of how the algorithms work, how the models work, and it's going to push your content to more and more people, and more people will see it. So,
and be aware of this: algorithms change.
Oh boy,
they change all the time. So be willing to adapt. What's Clint Eastwood said? When that movie, adapt, overcome, right? Because you have to be able to change at the breeze changing from east to west, because they'll sit down, like TikTok did an algorithm change. I don't remember how long it was now, where they wanted the people start creating content longer than 1 minute, so they shifted the algorithm to reward videos that were longer than 1 minute. You have to stay somewhat plugged into what the algorithm wants in order to get it out there and get that message out there sometimes.
Well, even size limits, formats. Also, there's a great career to be had for anyone out there. If you really enjoy this stuff and you want to, start your own digital marketing agency like I've done, I mean, there's a great career path there, but it is frustrating. Nothing has changed faster and more frequently and requires more upkeep in terms of knowledge than trying to deal with all the different social media platforms. And there are some good newsletters out there. There's a company that sells a scheduler tool, but they have a free newsletter. They're called Hey Orca. So if you look them up and subscribe to their newsletter, they actually send you an email. I think it's like every day with all of the latest, what's the new size format for Instagram, what's going on with their algorithm, what is it rewarding, what is it not rewarding, and for all the different platforms. So, find yourself a few newsletters like that, because you would be shocked at just how frequently and drastically the rules change on these platforms, which goes back to your point, don't eat the elephant all in one bite. Start with one or two platforms that you really get to know and get familiar with and get comfortable with before you try and deal with like all 50.
Yeah, I'm not on all platforms by any stretch of the imagination, but I am on probably, I have to count them up, maybe 8 or 9, and I'm not looking to grow anymore, just because of the time commitment as it is now. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. You gotta live with that. Yeah. Josh, great show, but appreciate you coming on today. If someone needs to get in touch with you because they want to find out more about you and what do you do, how do they get in touch with you?
Yes, I mean, I am most active on a personal level on LinkedIn, but I'm also on all the various platforms, and the easiest way to find a link to everything that we offer in terms of how to find us and how to get in touch with us is to go to bowmanvisionmedia.com.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.